Hi people, welcome to yet another episode of Queer Prism 256 podcast. Queer Prism 256 podcast is a podcast that shares day-to-day life experiences of LGBTQ women in Uganda. Today, we are going to tackle the most trending controversial topic in Uganda, which is the passing of the Anti Homosexuality Bill 2023. The LGBTQ plus community has been facing attacks from anti-gay groups since last year, and we even witnessed the closure of Sexual Minorities Uganda, which is a network organization for LGBTQ plus organizations in Uganda. The community has continuously been facing attacks from parliament, religious leaders, family networks, and anti-gay groups. On 7th March 2023, the Anti Homosexuality Bill was presented in Parliament for its first reading by Honorable Asman Basalira, the Member of Parliament for Bugiri Municipality. It was later passed by Uganda's 11th Parliament on March 21st, 2023, in front of 389 members of Parliament, and now awaits to be signed by the President of Uganda, Museveni. In the studio today, we have LGBTQ plus community leaders who are here to share their opinions about the bill, as well as my co-host. Please introduce yourself.
My name is LJ, and I am part of Queer Prism 256, and I am happy to be part of the conversation today, and looking forward to interacting with other guests and hearing their opinions about the topic today. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Bana Mwesige. Ordinarily, I work with Lifeline Youth Empowerment Center as a programs manager. I am a queer man from Uganda.
Hi everybody, my name is Avi Serran, or you can call me Serrano. And yes, I am a queer man living in Uganda, even with whatever is going on. Happy to be here, and I can't wait to get into whatever we have today.
Hi, my name is Ruby, non-binary human being, and I work with Diverse Empowerment Foundation.
Hi everyone, my name is CJ, and I'm the host of today's show, and we are going to talk about the Anti Homosexuality Bill 2023. What's your opinion about the bill as a queer person?
About the bill as a queer person, I feel the bill is regressive. It takes us back to where we were, the work we have done all this while as a community. The bill makes the work we have done invalid. It makes us feel as if we've done nothing for the community right now, because we are supposed to be progressing as a community and in terms of social justice and movement building and community building. But with this bill, a bill that takes us 1,000 steps back, it makes us feel like we have done nothing. I also feel like the bill is a populist bill. It violates the rights of the human rights of LGBTIQ people, because we are first human beings before we are LGBTIQ people. So all the rights that you're supposed to enjoy as a human being are violated. You are discriminated. The bill is totally unfair.
Ruby, what's your opinion about the bill?
I'm in line with what Serrano has shared, though I would say that the bill does not only affect LGBTQ plus persons, but it's going to go beyond, more so when it comes to, court representation, the fact that you denied to have a lawyer. This means that even if it is a lie, even if somebody has something against you and just goes to the police and says, this person is homosexual, that's it. You're going into jail. But also, looking beyond that, I would also say that the people in politics are going to suffer the most, more so the opposition. They will suffer the most, because once it is aired somewhere or rumored, or it's a hush-hush statement somewhere that you're affiliated with any gay or LGBTQ plus entity, or even just taking a picture where there's a rainbow item or colors or a wall For instance,
or even wearing rainbow socks.
Even wearing rainbow socks or cartoons with rainbow colors, you will be going to jail. And the saddest part is just not having representation to say that I'm a victim to this lie. So I think Ugandans should know that this bill is not only affecting LGBTQ plus persons, but it's going to affect all of us generally as Ugandans. Yes.
Bana, what's your opinion about the bill?
I think for me it is the whole tenor of the bill is just criminalizing the existence. Just as a gay person breathing, living, and just being yourself is criminalized in this bill. Thought or the thinking behind the bill is gay or homosexual equals a criminal, or equals you do not deserve to be in society, you do not deserve to have rights as a human being. So all these things to do with clauses or not associating with people, your boss not hiring you, your landlord not having you stay in their house, all these things are rooted in the fact that you are a criminal simply for just being gay, whether you have had sex, because ideally a lot of talk is about sex or not, but just identifying and saying that I'm gay makes you a criminal. I think that is that's my view of the bill. It's tougher than the previous bill because the first version sort of didn't. The first version was talking a lot about sexual abuse and sexual assault. It went a little into promotion, quote unquote promotion, but this bill is very explicit about people who identify as queer or people who just look as, because you don't have to identify, you just have to look a certain part, and then you are gone. So even I think it's most harmful for me personally. I think it's most harmful to children because now a kid who is just being a kid, whether they are queer or not, is going to be criminalized for just being a child. Yeah, and it's because adults have failed to understand the dynamics of gender, the dynamics of sexuality, the dynamics of just kids discovering themselves and being who they are as people.
Ruby, as a person who is working with PWDs, what would be your comment on a clause that is under aggravated homosexuality that says an offense or a person who commits the offense of homosexuality may, under any of these circumstances, commit aggravated homosexuality and suffer death? So they go further under clause F. A person against whom the offense is committed is a person with disability or suffers a disability as a result of the sexual act. Is this bill trying to say that disabled people can't be gay? if you read it.
Yes, when you read it, it somehow shows that the person who is having this relationship may not be a PWD, may not be a person with disabilities. It's the same thing actually as asking myself earlier. So what happens if I am using a wheelchair and I am a lesbian and I'm having a relationship with somebody who also is using a wheelchair?
Exactly.
So how does this bill affect us because we're both PWDs? Or if we both have psychosocial disabilities, then what happens? So I've also been asking myself the same question because in actual sense, we do have people who are living with disabilities and are LGBTQ plus persons. So it's, as earlier when Serrano shared and said, this bill is like outrageous. It's literally outrageous. Like some of these things, like you read them and you just laugh because there's no sense behind it when you kind of interpret it. So I've also been asking myself the same question. What happens to the actual PWDs who are in relationships? Or rather say, who identify as LGBTQ plus person and consent? Or even, it is the only way they can have sex. No, let's just be honest. What if because we have people who are, it's more of a sexual preference. It's not even that they identify as LGBTQ plus persons. When it comes to PWDs, there are PWDs who would prefer to be asexual. And it's part of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So what happens to those people? Because I've been asking myself all these questions. What happens to asexuals? It's like a lot of confusion around this, because Bana earlier on shared and said we failed to, understand sexuality, gender, and all these other terminologies that, would make us move forward and stop boxing everything under homosexuality. Yeah.
It's like the government is trying to tell us who we are supposed to sleep with. I mean, can't I be gay and disabled at the same time?
No, you're supposed to be a heterosexual and have heterosexual sex.
Wow. LJ, what scares you most about the bill?
I think for me, what scares me the most is the fact that as an activist, I have to be arrested. So it totally doesn't make sense, because there are people who depend on our work, and there is a purpose as to why NGOs are started up, or these organizations are started up, because these are safe places for people who seek services, who seek for help. And at the same time, what scares me the most is the fact that if I am sick and I have a doctor who I've been going to for services, then that doctor is supposed to report me. So where does the case of confidentiality stand? Because if I'm seeing my doctor personally, and if that is my orientation, I believe that is something personal, and you don't have to violate my privacy by reporting me and saying that I am gay or something. What if I haven't opened up to the doctor and said that I'm gay? So it's just total confusion, just like Ruby has said. So that is actually something that scares me the most.
When you go to the hospital and they tell you, bring your partner.
Oh,
No, I've just been thinking about it, when you were saying it,
Yeah.
like you have an infection. It's not even having to do with HIV, just an infection, like an STI. And they're telling you, bring your partner. So what is going to happen is that a lot of people are going to transmit these diseases, because you can't bring in your partner, because everything is now hush-hush. It's like curtains behind closed.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, this person who has this infection is going to literally be spreading it everywhere, because they can't bring in their partners.
Definitely.
Or they can't even tell their partners, because the partner will instantly, things happen in relationships, even in heterosexual relationships. The minute you're mad at somebody and then you remember they gave you an infection, and you're like, you just run and report. But it's like in the spur of the moment, because you're angry, being petty.
Yeah.
So all these, they look like petty small things, but
they're
actually
big things,
they're big things, because LJ was sharing, and I'm like, yo, if I get an infection, how am I supposed to bring my partner into the same medical? Because the minute we both come in, we're going to be reported. And then also, what happens to all these people who have been going for treatment, or these other health centers,
with all their phone numbers,
locations where they stay, emails, they have all these details of they themselves and their sexual partners. So
it's just total confusion, and then it goes back to that whole thing of saying everyone has a right to health.
Even murderers, people who are already convicted, who according to the law are already murderers, have a right to health care in prison. So it's a very weird thing for them to single out that these are the people who are not deserving of healthcare or healthcare access. There is something that Serrano mentioned earlier, and a lot of people, when I've been having conversations around this topic, someone kept saying this is the blackmail bill, because when you read, let me just go through the clause 14. It talks about a person who knows or has reasonable suspicion that a person has committed or intends to commit the offense of homosexuality or any other offense under this act shall report the matter to police for appropriate action. When you go to the third section, after describing that if you know someone or if you know that they are intending,
Yeah, that's.
I don't know how you know they are intending.
that this person, if the person does not report the matter to police, they commit an offense and it is liable on conviction to a fine of not exceeding 5,000 currency points or imprisonment for a period not exceeding 6 months. So this is the reason I'm saying this is the blackmail bill is because determining the bar for determining intention is very, very high. But given that our system in Uganda is also quite corrupt and quite not according to the book, it's going to be very hard to first of all convict truthfully. Okay, if this law, for example, was to be passed, and okay, now they want to really convict people of homosexuality or of knowing homosexuals. If you're going to really convict someone, it means you have to really prove that they were intending to do it, or they were intending, or that they did it. And the bar is so high. But given that there is corruption and there's all these things, if I, Bana, I don't have money to pay officers or to pay people who will defend my case or to pay a lawyer, and I have a fallout with my landlord or with my friends or my ex or something, they can just use this to entrap me, because if I don't have the resources, then I will lag in the prison system, I will lag in jail. Like there is already so much injustice at the moment for people who do not earn as much and people who do not have the connections and resources. So if someone comes to bully you or to try and blackmail you, it's very easy. This law makes it so easy for someone to blackmail you using this issue, because they know that Arnold does not have access to a lawyer or does not have access to knowledge about the law. And given that the police is corrupt and the systems are very not efficient, it's going to be very easy to blackmail people using this law. It's even tuvude in the spirit of the law. When you're just looking at it, at the idea of implementing this law, you're going to see that it's going to disproportionately affect people who are poor, people who don't have access to resources, because I might be an activist, or I might be someone who is queer and I have resources. I can look for a lawyer, I know my rights, but just imagining a queer person in deep down in the village, and maybe one of their family members or one of their rivals or something finds out that they are queer. They don't have the resources to defend themselves. They don't even know what is available to them within the law. And so actors will take advantage of this fact. And it's scary in that way. When you think about how many queer people are poor, how many queer people don't have access to information, how many queer people are not learned, because they just accuse you on TikTok one day like this
and you're down depression,
and you're in prison like the very next day. And Uganda is so weird, they can keep you on remand for months, and even if you're not convicted. So it's scary in that way.
Sarano, what scares you most about this bill?
What scares me is that the bill erases my existence. The bill does not allow me to be myself. The bill takes away me being gay. It takes that away from me. If a bill stops you from accessing the things you're supposed to access as a queer person, as a gay man, if I'm supposed to go to a facility and get treated for a disease that I have, and then I have to present myself as a heterosexual person, I don't think I'll get the services that I need.
The treatment.
The treatment that I need, because there are some illnesses that you'll get as a gay man, and you can't disclose to a doctor because you're a gay man. And when you tell them I have this,
they'll just know.
They will know.
They'll know that you're gay, and that's how you get reported.
Yeah.
So if such a bill is passed, where does that leave us? I'll hint on something I'll talk about something that Bana said about privilege and all. Takes me back to a conversation I had with a friend this morning, and they were telling me we should leave this country. And I'm like, we might be privileged. I'm not speaking because, okay, I'm not sure if I'm really privileged, but at least at some level. I'm like, we might be a little bit privileged, but think about the other people, the queer person down in the village that does not even know what the bill has. But then for them, they're still living their lives. Normally.
Bliss.
I know of a trans woman who was okay with living their life even when the bill was passed in Parliament. They went around telling their parents that they're like, me, I want to be a woman, I want to get married to a man. Think about such a person. Where does that leave them?
I think just to also add on Serrano's point, this bill tends to censor LGBTI persons as well. Like, for example, we cannot actually sit down and have this conversation because we'll be penalized, right? But then when we sit down and share this information and we talk about certain things, we are trying to share these things with someone who doesn't know. Just like they've said, like someone who is deep down in the village might not even know that once the bill is passed, once the president signs it, they're going to be criminalized. Just imagine someone, you're there like being flamboyant, walking around, and before you know it, you're arrested. And they're like, these are the charges. And like, you literally do not know anything. So it just tends to censor with the LGBTI existence in Uganda, but I don't think it will be possible.
What scares me the most when it comes to what Lisa has shared and Serrano, when we were in school, we had students who were not queer, but the way they expressed themselves.
Yes.
So what is going to happen to these children? They are cis and have girlfriends and boyfriends, but probably they walk like ladies. Maybe a boy walks like a lady, and the girl is... We had girls who were tomboys, but they had boyfriends, and they got married so easily, and they're still tomboys.
Yeah.
So what is going to happen to these human beings? So for me, the other thing that really, really, really scares me are the teenagers. More so like the adolescent age, and you still try to figure yourself out. And you're even a boy, and maybe your voice has not broken, and it's very feminine, or you're very expressive, with gestures that are very feminine. What is going to happen to them? Which means there's going to be already, these were categories of students who were bullied in school with just a rumor from a child who hates you and says, I saw you kissing a girl and it was false. You even have a boyfriend back home, and you'd be hated in the whole school. So which means there's going to be a very high rise in bullying. There's going to be a high rise of suicidal teenagers and youths. Like, these are things we need to have conversations about. A lot of youths and teenagers are going to be committing, already we're seeing it during COVID, and now we've been seeing the high rise of teenagers committing suicide. So the numbers are going to escalate, and they're going to blow off the roof, because once you go to every school and everyone is pinpointing at how you're walking or how your voice sounds, you're going to feel out of place, and yet you're not queer. So
imagine all this has been happening without the bill being introduced, and now the bill is introduced. Imagine the magnitude of that.
And then what happens to the senior women? I don't, because if you have a tomboy in your dormitory or in whatever section is supervised, then you're supposed to report.
Yes.
You suspect them or queer or...
And
so
then also the headmistress or the headmaster, the owners of the
school.
Oh my goodness. Or if a parent comes on video and just sees a boy walking like a girl, he's literally going to call onto the police and be like, this school, they are recruiting my children.
Yeah, they have homosexuals, true.
I think also it lends credence to panic, because if someone is just walking Vivier, like, it gives homophobes a lot of power to just do as they wish, because it has empowered them to determine who is gay and who is not. There is something Serrano mentioned earlier. It's very interesting that this bill, there is no law in Uganda that determines rehabilitation, quote unquote, or that determines how to fix people or how to. Most of that is definitely left to medical professionals. Maybe there is a code of conduct for medical professionals, but this law is the first in Uganda to explicitly say that there should be rehabilitation of queer people. The way it is done is very unclear. Even in the law, it talks about the court may, upon this is section 16, upon convicting a person, order the provision of social services for the purposes of rehabilitating. What do they mean by these social services? Who is doing these services? Are these services backed by science? So it's sort of has determined that there is a scientific, or that there is what is it called? There is a reason for doctors or for medical professionals to actually, quote unquote, fix homosexuality. Yeah, and because let me tell you, even murderers are not given rehabilitation. There is no crime in Uganda that the law stipulates that this such and such a criminal offense requires rehabilitation of this specific sort. I mean, the only rehabilitation they have is putting you in prison. So I think this is new and very targeted, and it really exposes the thinking behind the people who brought up this bill.
Is Bana, from your point, do you think the bill is trying to legalize conversion therapy for queer persons?
Yes, but I don't think it's technically because conversion therapy in Uganda is very legal at the moment, because there is nowhere, if you've personally I've undergone conversion therapy, if you the protections for religious institutions are very, very, very broad. Yeah, that even if your pastor beat you up, as long as it was you consented as part of religious practice, in quote unquote, even if your pastor abuses you, even if anything, as long as it's shrouded in religion and faith, is protected by the Constitution.
Wow.
So it's currently the law is very, very protective of conversion therapy. This clause just makes it broader, that anyone can now do conversion therapy, including people who are not professional, including people who have not been doing conversion therapy per se. In fact, I dare say that it's if you want to escape this law, in quotes and quotes, someone mentioned that if you want to escape this law, go to a church and sit there all day, all night, because the church is one of the most protected spaces in Uganda, because there are sexual assaulters there are abusers, there are all these things, and they will get away with it because it's a church. Yeah, it's protected under religious practice. And I think okay, I'm not giving you guys an idea, but if you feel like you're tired, just go to a church, sit there and say, this is now, they won't touch you. Yeah, because the church, people in church have power, they have resources, something that I mentioned earlier about privilege, and that Serrano mentioned, that if you are the church and the religious institution gives you a protection of privilege, that just because you have followers or you're claiming that you know God in a certain form of way, you're protected from. How many abuse cases are in the Catholic Church? How many priests are you seeing that have been convicted? How many even homosexual abuse? Yeah, like people priests raping young boys. Yeah, that this law, in quote unquote, is trying to protect. How many of them have been convicted?
That has been even mentioned about religious institutions.
Yes, so there is there is that sort of thing, and to look at it in the context of conversion therapy, I think conversion therapy, they have just given it a broader mandate to do more things, because I mean now it is on paper. It was much as it was legalized in theory, now it is on paper that your priest can use electroshock therapy. They can hit your head with the Bible. They can hit your head with whatever it is, and it is legalized now because it is under this law. Yeah, and they can abuse you. They literally, this is legalizing abuse, legalizing spiritual abuse, emotional and psychological and physical.
That has just taken me back to, I was at a burial last week. I shared with Serrano what happened, and this guy came on to give a speech. He was the head of the clan, and he spoke about homosexuality, and he's like, if your daughter or your son comes home with the same person, or they claim to be their partner, just beat them. As in the state will be on your side. And it's more like you're pushing for violence, like it is okay, like they will understand, they will not hold you accountable. And that is a lot of misinformation, because I mean, how do you even start to discipline someone without even trying to understand them first? So
and already child abuse is sort of legalized because of confusion about consent and how kids can consent. So you can beat your child anyhow. Now they have extended the child abuse to other people in the society, including priests, including leaders, including religious leaders, including even senior women in your dormitory. Yeah.
I think the bill has really given homophobes a lot of power.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of hate speech. Yeah. There is also blackmailing on the different social media platforms where people call out the people they suspect. Yeah. And the bill will tell you that if you want to report someone you suspect. If you see this woman, if you see a man who is acting like a woman, feel free to report. They'll be arrested.
The First Lady said the law in its current form leans more to prevention. I think you're hearing these words, like prevention. We all know what prevention means, which means they're literally erasing existence, as Serena said. Prevention, and less on correction of those who are already practicing homosexuality. In quotes, if we put a law that criminalizes all these other things they do in our society, so it is also we're not part of that society. Clearly. Yeah. But for those who want to change, provide a formula. I don't know where this formula is deprived from, but they need to provide a formula through which they can change to become normal again. So literally we are abnormal. I think our law will be complete. Close quotes. Like, this whole sentence in itself was very triggering for me, because a lot of things literally showed that we are not part of this society. I think there is a different society on Mars where we live. But then our own country. Yes, but then also that there is some sort of formula. I don't know if any of the queer people in this room have gone through a formula that got them to where they are now, and there's a new formula being created to erase the old formulas. I just wanted us to share on, because this was very triggering for me, but also it highlighted on why this bill is coming. And Serrano shared that bit, that literally it's erasing. Yeah, because when people are using words like prevention, we prevent diseases.
we prevent coming up of new queer, something of that sort.
But then, to me, it literally doesn't make sense, because these things have been happening in schools, even during our times. These things were there, and yes, they were reported, but then people are not actually bothered about them. And then what also beats my understanding is, one, our own parents went through these cycles, and battling with feelings and emotions as a teenager, it is something big, and it is something that needs to be understood. there is a video that I saw of Halima Namakula sharing about her experience with the lesbian and the homosexuality bill, and she said one thing which literally made sense to me was, one, we as parents, we know that our kids are different. For example, if you have girls and probably 2 boys, and you see that one boy is behaving a certain way, or like they are different from the way boys are supposed to behave, as a parent, trust me, from day one, you know that your kid is going to be different. So it took me back to a point of, sometimes parents tend to say, oh, my kid was recruited. But initially, when you were taking care of your kid and when they were growing up, you knew that your kid was different and you knew that they're going to be different. So there are certain things you cannot run away from. But we as parents, and they say that lesbians or like gay people don't have kids, but
We have children.
we as parents or people who have kids, because we do have kids already, it is our responsibility to actually give this information and share the right information with with our kids.
Our first episode about the Anti Homosexuality Bill has come to an end, but please stay tuned for our next episode as leaders explore the Anti Homosexuality Bill.